Huntsville has had its share of philanthropists. Among them are Virginia McCormick and Grace Walker, celebrities in their own right who inspired parades when they rolled into town. Every winter, they would appear in the train station and crowds would follow them and their retinue of servants down the street to Kildare Mansion. This is the story of their lives and philanthropic efforts. Virginia McCormick was born in Illinois, the daughter of Cyrus McCormick, inventor of the mechanical reaper, and Nettie Fowler McCormick. Virginia spent her early life living in Chicago, where she attended the Ladies' Seminary. Following her father's death, Virginia's mother and brother managed her inheritance due to her struggles with mental illness. In 1900, the McCormicks used this trust set up for Virginia to purchase Kildare, a mansion in Huntsville. Over her lifetime, Virginia kept several homes and estates in the United States and Canada. Local historians have said that the McCormicks introduced Huntsville to the trappings of wealth. Virginia kept a large household of up to 35 servants, several full-time musicians, and her own horses. Every autumn, a special McCormick train came to town and schools were dismissed so that curious children could watch as her possessions were unloaded from train car after train car. Virginia entertained grandly, hosting elaborate parties for children and holiday celebrations. She held a festival every year on May 5th in observance of her birthdays, in addition to Easter egg hunts and Christmas parties. She invited hundreds of school children to these festivals. However, other than these appearances for the children, Virginia rarely was seen in public. Grace Walker spent most of her life working for the McCormick family and traveled with Virginia McCormick wherever she went, which meant she also spent winters in Huntsville for roughly 3 decades. Grace was often referred to as Virginia's companion, and census records list her occupation as secretary, hired woman, and custodian manager. Her petition for U.S. citizenship lists her as a guardian. Grace Thorne Walker was born in Welland, Canada, the daughter of Charles Walker, a Scottish immigrant and Baptist clergyman, and Abigail Rice Walker. Previous to Huntsville, she resided in Chicago and Toronto, where she served for years on the Housing Board of the City of Toronto, and for 25 years was a member of the National Board of the YWCA of Canada. Once in Huntsville, she worked for the benefit of Huntsville Hospital, Central and West Huntsville YMCAs, First Presbyterian Church, Alabama A&M University, and many other philanthropic projects. Grace was keenly interested in young people, assisting in putting a number of them through college. In 1927, Grace moved to Pasadena, California, where she was a member of the Valley Hunt Club, the Women's City Club, and the Women's Civic League. Her activities focused on the Western Personnel Institute, which she helped organize, and the YWCA, the neighborhood church, and the Pasadena area chapter of the American Association for the United Nations. During her time in Huntsville, Virginia McCormick donated generously to many causes. She provided funding for several YMCA facilities, including West Huntsville and Central YMCA. These YMCAs, as well as a 15-room social community center and other educational facilities, would impact how the local textile mill workers spent their limited social time. Virginia is also credited with the funding of Alabama A&M University's Hospital and Economics Building, as well as building the colored wing at Huntsville Hospital. Grace was active with the YWCA before working for McCormick, so one can easily see her hand in McCormick's funding 3 YMCA facilities in Huntsville. In 1914, Grace helped establish the Young Women's Auxiliary to the YMCA, a civic organization which was renamed in her honor some years later. The Grace Club was a social and philanthropic organization of young women in Huntsville. It was renamed the Junior League in 1975 and remains dedicated to promoting volunteerism, developing the potential of women, and improving communities. As Virginia spent most of her life declared legally insane, with Grace acting as her caretaker, so much of Virginia's social activity and philanthropy can be attributed to Grace. This is clearly reflected in the overlap in philanthropic projects listed in both women's obituaries. Virginia's time in Huntsville is tied to the history of Kildare Mansion. Bought by her trust for $36,000 in 1900, Kildare is an ornate three-story Queen Anne-style mansion in Huntsville. The mansion was built in the 1880s by Michael O'Shaughnessy, a northern businessman who was moving to Huntsville with his wife and 5 children. He named it Kildare in honor of the Irish county where he was born in 1833. Virginia used Kildare, one of 4 seasonal abodes, as her winter home for nearly 30 years. Many local historians believe that Kildare was in its heyday under her ownership. Virginia made minimal contributions to its architecture, added a 1-story music conservatory to the already existing large ballroom, as well as a porch and possibly the north wing. Otherwise, she only altered decorative elements of mantels and molding in the ballroom and dining room. The McCormick Trust also expanded the 71-acre park through land purchases in the 1920s. Virginia was known to have owned a fine dairy farm on Kildare's property and to give dairy products to underprivileged children. When Virginia ended her seasonal residency in Huntsville in 1931, the city sold off lots from Kildare's land, and the remaining house and land changed ownership about 10 times over the next 40 years. The house itself during the time was used as a brothel, a hotel, a boarding house, a health spa, and an antique shop before being bought and restored by a longer-term owner. Virginia McCormick lived her last decade in California, where she owned several houses, dying in 1941 a millionaire recluse. She is buried with her family in Graceland Cemetery in Chicago, Illinois. Her obituary was printed in nearly every major city newspaper in the United States. Grace Walker became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 1930s. She died in 1952 and is buried with her family in the Avondale Cemetery in Ontario, Canada. Although their names are largely lost to history, their actions in Huntsville still echo today.